In the late 70s, England was in the grip of a punk rock explosion, and that really inspired so many teenagers to get out there and make their own clothes, form their own bands and write their own songs. So me and my school friends put together a band which we called Sordid Details. And we made a real racket in my mum and dad's garage, and eventually conned our local vicar into letting us play in the church hall. I think we told the vicar we were a folk band or something like that. So anyway, we played that gig, and then we played a bunch of other gigs in the local area, and that really gave us a taste for getting out there and doing something in music. So right after that point, punk kind of dissipated somewhat. The Sex Pistols split up, and most of the other punk bands kind of moved on to a slightly different sound. So the next real wave in popular culture, aside from mod revival and a ska revival, was this thing which became known as New Romantics. And it was kind of a throwback to the era of glam rock. So I managed to meet up with a bunch of other people who were similarly David Bowie, Roxy Music fans, and started hanging out in nightclubs which sprung up all around the country, from Manchester to Birmingham to Leeds to Liverpool, and in my hometown of Doncaster. And me and my friends, we put together this band, the second band, called Wonder Stories, which is named after a science fiction magazine. We made a bunch of recordings, got on the radio in England, and got some patronage from major Radio 1 DJs, and got a lot of press, actually. The first bit of press that we got for the band was in this publication called ID magazine. And ID, along with The Face, were the beginnings of kind of popular culture in the UK at the time. A bit like the sort of blogosphere of today. They were the people that were documenting what everyone was wearing, where they were getting their clothes from, and that scene really exploded. And again, it sort of gave permission for young people to make clothes, to become graphic designers, to become potential art directors of magazines, to make videos. It sort of said to you, you don't have to have necessarily the skills to do it, but you have to have the energy and really the passion, and you have to just jump in and kind of have a go. And I think that message from the early 80s is still absolutely relevant in today. It's always relevant for young people to get out there and sort of have a go and do it. And while this was happening, I was seeing in the local newspapers and in the national newspapers nightclubs in London that were populated by people who went to this art school in London called Central St. Martin's. And I thought, wow, they look like they're having a great time, so I want to go there too. And that really was my jumping off point from that band into moving to the south of England, to London, to the big city. And it really was an accelerated learning experience for me at 18 years old, going to a major cosmopolitan location with a whole bunch of other kids from all over the country and some from other parts of the world, and really learning from a peer group. I find that in education you learn as much from your peers as you can from your instructors and your teachers. And through that, my textile tutor at the time introduced me to a woman who was putting together a book about t-shirts. And this woman said, you know, I'd really like to take a look at your work, and I'd like to know about the process that you go through in designing. And I want to hear some of your music because my husband is a manager. And I thought, oh wow, that's cool. Who does he manage? Well, he manages Adam and the Ants. Okay, I've heard of them. So this lady called Alice Hiller invited me around to her house, and I met her husband, Falcon Stewart, who was, you know, one of the most experienced and kind of legendary punk and post-punk managers at the time. So Falcon took me under his wing and got me some studio time at Manchester Square EMI Records, which is where anybody that knows the Beatles' red and blue albums, where they're leaning over the balcony of their record company, that's the building. Very, very famous. So EMI gave us some studio time. We went in, we started recording, and we were hooked up with this guy who was an engineer of the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon album. And he said, wanting to impress us, oh, you know, Freddie Mercury's in the next studio. He's recording. Do you want to meet him? And we were like, no. Arrogant kids, you know. So we put together a bunch of recordings for EMI. Falcon then took us to another major label called MCA Records, and they gave us studio time and sent us off to the studio of a guy called Martin Turner, and we went off to his studio, recorded a bunch of tracks which became the Watersport record, which Vulcan then decided he was going to put out because he was starting his own record label. So again, it was that sort of do-it-yourself spirit which I think has informed a lot of the things that I've done and a lot of things that I personally believe in, which is kind of having your creative expression, putting it together in a way that you really believe passionately in, and then getting it out into the world. And I think one of the great things today is that because of online, you can really do that. You can make your design, your graphic identity, your video, your music, your sound, whatever you want to do, any creative expression, and get it out into the world. There's a lot of interest today in that 80s period. I think primarily because of the creativity that came forth. The 80s is a little bit maligned as being a decade of greed and a decade of kind of vacuous entertainment and culture. But there was a lot of cool creative stuff that came out of that period too, and I think today it's being rediscovered by young people, and they're actually seeing some of the more creative elements of it that are frankly missing from today's culture. So it's really great to see the celebration of that moment in time in contemporary popular culture.